Hi, my name is Glenn Hasselman. Just making this video for the free accounting software users to show you guys how to import CSV data or transactions data into free accounting software. So now this is a spreadsheet and I've just typed out some example data into this spreadsheet which is fairly basic. It's the kind of information that you would get from a bank statement, but this is not necessarily just for bank statements. So we've got the date, and there's things to note here is that there are headings on these columns. Okay, so the software is expecting there to be headings. Then you've got the date, a description, and the amount. The date is in this format day/month/year. You can also, perhaps it's even preferred to put your dates in this format. However, I've noticed that some bank websites don't allow that format or don't provide it in that format. So the software will accept a few different formats, and this is one of them. Other thing to note is that in the amount column, the payments are negative amounts and the deposits are positive amounts. The amount column is sometimes split into two columns with a debit and a credit column. And I'll point that out when doing the import. You can import that without changing that. Okay. Now, normally you don't have to edit the file, or it's designed that you hopefully won't need to have to edit the file. You can just save it somewhere and then import it, particularly if it's a bank statement. And it's quite flexible. So the process is quite flexible, so hopefully most of the time you won't need to manually edit the file. But it's useful knowledge to have. Now, another thing I want to point out on this file is that this is to be saved as a CSV file. So here it says I've saved it in a file called transactions.csv. It can be called anything you like, and then .csv. If we open it up in a text editor, it shows you what the text is like in the file, and it's got, the value for that cell, then it's got a comma, and then the next value, and that's how it's split up in that file. Okay, so now to import this into free accounting software, you use this function here under the transactions worksheets called import CSV data worksheet. Okay, there's a few options on here, and I'll just take you through a basic import. First of all, I'll do some subsequent videos with some more advanced features. So you click here, import a file, and you choose that transactions file. Okay, the filter is for .csv files over there. Now, I'd already actually selected these values. They'll be blank when you do this. Just remembered it from the last time I was in here, but basically when you go to import, there's certain fields you need to link up to the imported file. So the date, for example, I've got a heading in the file called date. So that could be called anything else in the file. This, although it's I'm linking up the date column in the file with the date here, it's whatever your heading set in the file. So the format of the file is not restricted, like the date doesn't have to be in the first column, and that hopefully saves you from having to edit the file to get it into the right format. The next field you have to link up is the counterparty. In fact, you don't have to link up the fields. It'll just mean that you have a little bit more work in the next stage to enter that data. But the counterparty, for example, is not in our file. So, the thing is, when you've just downloaded a bank statement, it doesn't have a column in it for the legal entity that you're purchasing or selling or getting the money from or paying it to. It has a comment or a description or something like that. So we're trying to leverage this description and use that to guess the counterparty, essentially. And I'll show you that at the next step. The comment, the comment for the transaction, we're just picking it up from the description column in the file. I think that's fairly straightforward. You can change the description to something that's more relevant, but normally that would do it. Okay, the amount is linked to the amount column in the file. The next two fields are for when you have a debit and credit column in the file. So you might have, if you've got that, you would leave the amount column blank and you would pick up the credit amount column and the debit amount column. And there's a note there to say that if it's a bank statement, a credit on the bank statement means a debit in your books. So you actually have to reverse that. So the credit column is put here against the debit amount, and the debit column is put there against the credit amount. Okay, the account. Look, I've selected description here, but reality is it's not in the file, so I'm going to change that to not in file. I guess the idea here is that we're actually trying to, although trying to do a lot with the description. You're trying to work out who you're paying, the comment for the transaction, inferring the account that it should be posted to. It's not an exact match, but you can leave these blank, or you can just select not in file. Okay, and there are a couple other fields, like you won't have tax amount in a bank statement file. It's not going to tell you how much GST is being charged, so you need the tax invoice for that. So just leave that blank, and that's one of the things you need to pay attention to when doing an import, just to make sure you do get all your tax amounts correct. Okay, once you're happy with that setup, just click Process File, and it takes you to back to the first page actually. But in this case, we have some data on it. Now, this data is, you'll notice it all has these dots on it. So, and down here it says, note values marked with a dot are values from the imported file. You need to generate transaction values or edit the transaction. So what that means is that it's just brought in exactly what's in the file. It hasn't tried to work out who are you paying, is it a cash payment, cash received, or what's the date, or anything like that. So to make it do that next step of trying to work out from the imported data which actual accounts and or counterparties etc. should be used, you have to select the data and click this button here saying generate transaction values for selected import data. Okay, so now you can see that in the date column, it's removed the bullet point from all of that. So it's really pretty easy for it to convert imported data into actual transaction dates. Transaction column, it's determined cash payment or cash received based on whether the amount was a minus or positive amount. And the next column is the counterparty. So you can see that for these first two transactions, it hasn't managed to work out a counterparty. But for the third and fourth one, it's actually figured something out. And the reason is because the comment, which you can actually see here because it comes from that field in the import file, the comment includes the actual counterparty's name. Okay, and so it'd probably be unusual actually for the for your customer to actually type their exact name into the description. It's probably going to be some abbreviation or some spelling error or something like that. And there is another way to get it to match up the customer, which I'll demonstrate in another video. The comment is just directly from that description in the file, and the amount directly from that amount in the file. You can see that on the cash payments, the amount has been reversed back to a positive amount. So that's not putting the negative in there. It doesn't need it because it's already noted as a cash payment. Okay, over here we have the account and tax code. Now, it hasn't been possible for the software to determine that from the information in the file, as well as also the tax amount. So we need to add those bits of information to the file or to this data so that we can then push it through to the into the ledger. So this is a little bit, this is a good thing because it's allowing us to add and change this data at this stage rather than requiring us to edit the file and have that set up perfectly first. If this was a long list of data, you might be able to sort this page and assign values to multiple rows fairly quickly, which could save you a lot of time in terms of data entry. So let's say these last two transactions both just need to go to sales revenue as a GST taxable sale. Okay, one way to do this is just to select the two transactions, and down the bottom right here we have assign values to selected transactions. Okay, and there's a whole bunch of values that we can assign. For the transaction type, it's it's already got a cash received transactions type, and that's fine for our purposes, so we can just leave that. Counterparty, it's already got the right ones. Account, it's blank, it needs an account, so we're going to put sales revenue. Tax code is going to be the GST taxable sale, and the next box is calculate tax amounts. Now you need to set that to yes, so that over here I'll just shrink down these columns a little bit. I do these videos on a fairly small size screen so that the text is still legible when you're viewing the videos. So the tax amount is just defaulted to 0. So we want to recalculate the tax amounts. So having set those parameters, we can just click this button, Apply to Selected Transactions, and it's put the account, the tax code, and the tax amount on those transactions. Now, you don't have to get all of this data perfect in one go. You can, now that we've got these last two transactions done, we can actually just push them through to the ledger, and so we can do that in bits. So selecting those last two, we can click this button here that says Post Selected Import Data to Ledger. Okay, and doing that moves it into our ledger and takes it off this screen. We'll go and have a look at that in a moment. But before we do that, let's just fix up these other two transactions. Okay, I think one thing to point out as well is that you don't need to finish these off. Let's say there was a transaction on here that you didn't want. You could hit this button here that says Delete Selected Import Data, and it would delete it. I think it's probably unusual to want to do that, but just pointing it out that that's if you found some errors in this import, which could happen if you were just trying it out for the first time and set up a file and you'd made a mistake, then you could delete it. Anyway, but let's say we want to push these through to the ledger. So the first one is for bank fees. Now we could go through and just select that transaction and put the values in here. But another way to do it is just to double click on it, and then you get to what looks like your transactions entry page. But it is not the transactions entry page. You are actually just editing this import data. So there's a bit of an error there that's not relevant to this. So for the counterparty, I've just selected not applicable. So this is just like a bank fee. You could actually set up your bank as the as a counterparty and then select that one. Putting it to bank charges and a GST free purchase, and then save. So it says saved import transaction. You still need to post the ledger. So that, although I've saved that page, it's not posted a transaction to the ledger. It's just put it back here to this page here, and it's updated these values to what I entered on the other page. So that one is ready now to go and get posted. Okay, so let's enter some. I'll finish off the other transaction as well. Now this said pay to XYZ in the import file. Perhaps the supplier is known by two different names, and in the setup here I've got it being called just a supplier, so it hasn't matched it, and so I'll just manually select that one. And for the account, I'll select other expenses, and it's automatically selected the tax code, GST, taxable purchase. Okay, so both of these transactions are ready now to be posted to the ledger, so we can just click the button to post it through to the ledger, and they're removed from this page. Okay, let's go and have a look at the income and expenditure report to see these transactions. Now there are a few other transactions in this file already. Some of those things like annual leave, but anyway, just ignoring those. Okay, on the sales revenue we can see the two transactions that we posted through are now there. and we've got bank charges coming through and the other expenses. The last transaction that we posted through from the import data is there. So this is a brief introduction, or hopefully enough to get started with importing data. Try with a small set of data first of all before you move up to larger sets. And yeah, I hope the video has been useful, and thanks for watching.